Hi, welcome to the Loud Lens on location with Nils Bratby. He's actually one of my friends. We are here at the, what's it called? The SWPP photo show.
Yeah, photo and video show.
Photo and video show, not to be confused with the NEC one, which is not at the NEC, and the beautiful sounds of London backdrop. Woo! Okay, let's get into this episode, which essentially, I'm going to be honest, it's going to be really hard. Give up studio photography to actually get a career you want. Yes?
Yeah, sort of.
Sort of, kind of, clickbaity. We've been friends for how long?
Must be 15 years because it would have been just after the studio started, wouldn't it? So,
Oh my God, yeah.
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 'Cause you knew Dad to start with. So.
I did. The first time I met Nils, I came out of his dad's studio and he was a grumpy teenager fixing a skateboard.
I wasn't a teenager, I was 28 at the time.
He looked about 12. Oh, I've moved it.
The artiste and the technical people.
I messed that up. So if the alignment's not right, that's because of me. But if you're watching this you're not watching this on YouTube, it's just a podcast, you'll never know that. Anyway, Nils is recently, well, actually tell everyone who you are. I feel like I could tell everybody, but I would like gloss over it all.
Yeah, well, so I'm Nils Bratby. I was a photographer for Immortal Life Photography, which was a studio in Stoke Mandeville. Not so much now. We recently just closed down our studio after 15 years.
Oh my God, it really makes me sad.
Yeah.
Really makes me sad.
Short version is we had some illness in the family and
it's okay, we're good now though.
we're all good. Everybody's fine.
Because you might know his dad. He featured on some of my videos because Baron and you are literally the people. You're like my Jiminy Crickets. I will call them for advice. Yeah. Even though we're not in like the similar like photography kind of styles. If I need advice and I just need to reassurance, these two will tell me if I'm being a twat.
Yeah.
These two.
Which is generally yes.
Yeah, you are, but still do it anyway. It's the advice from the dad.
Much, yeah.
Yeah. So now you're giving up the studio and what are you going to do?
Don't know exactly. That's kind of where we're at the minute, is kind of like trying to decide what next. So
the reason I want to do this podcast with you is I want to know what made you decide, one, do you have any regrets being a studio photographer? Do you think you're going to miss being a studio photographer? And what is the issues with being a studio photographer and the whole aspect of, do you feel less of a photographer now because you don't have the studio? All these things.
Yeah, I mean, short version of the, I didn't plan to be a photographer.
I know you didn't. Family coercion.
Yeah, basically, Dad wanted to start a photography studio and I wanted a career change, and those two things seemed to happen at roughly the same time.
They did, didn't they? I mean, I started my career because your dad told me I had to, because I was already doing it, but I wasn't doing it properly.
Yeah.
And then your dad was like, get on it. And then you looked at me and went, yeah, get the F on it.
Yeah.
And then we sort of like, I was your assistant for a while. You've
Yeah.
assisted me.
Yeah.
And then you've literally just been my business gurus.
Yeah.
So when you got the studio, when you came into the studio,
yeah,
what are the things that people don't realise about studio that is absolutely not the be all end all? Because having a studio doesn't make you a good photographer, does it?
No, I mean, it's like good cameras. Good cameras do not make good photographers, kind of thing. The photographers make cameras good, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that. I can see that.
Yeah, yeah. Studios obviously give you more options.
Yes.
And make things easier sometimes.
Yes.
But they don't help you. I mean, the difference between doing photography in the studio and doing it on location is the location, you're responding to the environment.
Right.
In studio, you have to create the environment.
See, I think that's a really good thing. People don't realise that you have to bring a lot more to a studio to make it not look like a studio.
Yeah, because you're basically starting with a blank room, which is going to be, to your average person, it's going to be quite intimidating. And then you've got to try and bridge that gap somehow.
Okay, and what's the bit you hated the most about the studio?
It's all that, I mean,
I hate the admin.
Yeah, I mean, basically, essentially, any photography studio comes with a lot of fixed costs, which turns them into a bit of a beast you have to constantly keep feeding.
I cry every time I paint my studio white, the floor, and then someone walks in with muddy shoes on it.
Yeah, invariably on the first day as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you, Soph, because I literally just painted my floor. And what did you do? Scuff it with your new rocks.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think... Go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, you need to be quite unprecious about your equipment.
Yeah, and did you find, like, having a studio, did you feel like you were more of a photographer because you had a studio or you had a studio placement?
Well, the thing is, I wasn't a photographer. Well, I never considered myself a photographer before. I've always been around photography. As you know, Dad's been in photography and I learned photography from him. So I've kind of always grown up with it.
Do you think you're now a photographer, though? Was there a point where you went, I'm a photographer now?
Yeah, I think probably about a couple of years in after, like, because I know, I don't know how, I wasn't originally going to be a photographer. I was just going to help out in the background.
Yeah, I know you were.
I was just kind of like, well, I'll give it a try.
And then you started winning awards, like, actually, I'm quite good at this.
I was like, this is all cool.
I remember us doing a shoot with the legend drag queen, DJ TT Bang.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, like, we proper buzzed off each other, and it was a really good shoot. Because if you remember, my camera battery had died.
Yes.
And I had to borrow yours, Canon. I'd never used a Canon before, and I panicked. And you were just like really chill about it all. And it was just such a good shoot. And I think we did really, really well. But so what was the point when you went, okay, now I feel like a photographer? Was there a defining point?
Probably not. I'd say it's just kind of like one of those things, like a couple of years in, it's like, oh yeah, that's what I do for a living now. So, yeah.
What do you think is the obsession, though, with photographers wanting a studio to sort of legitimize themselves? Or do you think that's an old way of feeling and it's falling out?
I think there's two types of photographers. There's photographers who do it for the art.
Yeah.
And I don't think for them a studio really makes much more of a difference than anything else. It's just another tool they use to create their art.
Yeah.
And then there's the photographers who do it for the technical challenge of photography.
Okay.
And for them, it's all about the kit.
Yeah.
They're the guys who will go out, who will tell you.
Or girls.
Or girls or guys.
The people.
Who will spend an hour telling you what camera they used.
They're the people I call the gym bros. They're the guys who go, do you even live, bro? Or like, do you even use XY brand? And I'm like, no, I use a potato to take pictures.
Yeah, the people who will tell you, the first thing they tell you when you see that you like their picture is tell you what lens and stuff you use. That's it.
We look like a little sitcom. Like we're like the friendless. We haven't got enough friends.
Well, I did like I matched my drink to your outfit.
I feel like it's kind of the story of our life, isn't it? We kind of always in synchronicity, but not quite the same as everyone thinks it is. So one of the things I was talking about was with being a studio photographer. Do you think there is this whole idea that having a studio makes you a legitimate photographer?
I think for some photographers, yeah. And I think it's for those...
I felt that way.
For the technical guys. And now I think that probably makes up a good chunk of photographers.
So we know, if you don't know the story of how I got my studio, I literally got told to have my studio, didn't I?
Yeah.
I wasn't planning on having a studio. I was happy freelancing. Actually, probably technically freeloading off of you and your dad sometimes.
Yeah.
But it was like, I was like your long lost cousin that showed up occasionally.
Yeah, occasionally cause a bit of chaos.
But you loved it.
Oh, to be honest, our life is so much chaos anyway.
I was going to say, you also
chaos.
like raiding my wardrobe because I used to have weird clothes, didn't I? And then your dad said you need to get a studio so I could develop myself a bit more as a photographer. And I didn't want one. And then I got one, and it was like overnight I had to open this whole studio, didn't I? And I was panicking, and your dad went, "You'll get to it." And your dad was right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't feel like more of photographers have a studio, but I definitely think customers think I'm more of a photographer.
Yeah, I mean, there is a credibility thing, isn't there? Like, that comes, you've got a fixed location, they can come to you and have a complaint if they have one.
It's weird, isn't it? Like, once you've got that thing, and I think the obsession with having a studio is because we still think of business as having a premises. Yeah. Even though we've moved like on digitally and we understand digital nomadsy and that you can be, you freelance, you can work from home, you can work from your desk. Somehow having a studio somehow legitimizes you more as a photographer in so many people's minds.
There are definitely benefits to it as well. I mean, there are practical, it does give you a space where you can actually work.
You're not propping it up on the kitchen counter.
Yeah, and you're not as dependent on like other people or the weather or all the other stuff that gets in the way sometimes.
So let's go on to more now, like what are the things that people don't realise about having a studio that might not work out for everybody? What are the things, if you were going to say, if someone says, I want a studio, what would be your cautionary tales?
I would probably say that you need to be aware that it's an always on thing. You don't really get any downtime.
Yeah.
It's that balance. I don't know, you've had that before. It's kind of thing like, you don't, it's very hard to step back. Like, and I mean, any artists out there, I mean, burnout's a real thing.
I run at 90 miles an hour everywhere, as we know, thanks ADHD. And then my personal life has always been very separate, hasn't it? Yeah. And then when my personal life came crashing down, I found solace in my studio. Yeah. And then unfortunately for me, I couldn't get away from the personal issue because it spilled over into my studio for a short time. Yeah. And I remember crying to you and your dad was like, yeah, but it's not the same. It's just your personal life invading. Give up the barriers. And then I found that on the days when you really don't want to be in the studio, you have to go. You have to show up.
Yeah, there's a discipline that has to come with it.
So I had to do the boundary thing. So I now don't have the studio. My studio's only by appointment, which I think was a great thing. Yeah. I don't take footfall.
Yeah, I mean, we were never really dependent on football. Yeah. We were basically in a location which was like a small industrial estate.
So many people think they need a studio on the high street and they get in this financial sticky wicket. And I'm like,
yeah, because the cost is so much higher.
Yeah, but no one walks down the high street. I want a loaf of bread. I'm going to get an angle grinder. Obviously, they're shopping in Lidl at this point. And then they go, oh, and I'm going to get a family shoot while I'm here. I don't get why you need it.
You don't, but it is a benefit that there is that whole kind of idea that you don't buy from somebody unless you've seen them 7 times. I don't know if you've heard that thing.
Yeah, I've heard that 7 points got, but it's now 21 points of contact. Someone told me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit different now, but yeah, I mean, there's still some truth to that you tend to go to the people you see. So if you see somebody on a high street all the time,
okay,
there is that to it.
Okay, so are you going to miss being a studio photographer?
I think after 15 years, I'm glad for the break. I'm not quite sure if I'll feel that same way in 6 months' time.
So do you identify now as a studio photographer who's now gone just back to being a photographer, or what are you going to give yourself as a title?
I don't know, because I kind of feel like I've done my rite of passage through being a studio photographer now. I don't have quite the same hang-ups of somebody who's like, the weekend warriors out there, so.
Oh, don't start with them. Don't start with them. That'll come for you. By the way, if you are a weekend warrior, that's fine. Just pay your tax and have insurance and don't do a shit job.
Yeah. Yeah.
If someone said to you, I'm going to set up a studio, right?
Yeah.
What would be I'm not going to give you like a top 5 because that's ridiculous, but what would be your advice they need to have checked before they consider doing the studio? This is before, like, everyone goes, I want a studio, but like, I think, people go off and they find a premises and I'm like, no. You need to do this before you even start looking at premises.
I think you need to decide what type of photographer you are.
Yeah.
I think that's the first thing, regardless of location, regardless of whether or not you're a studio photographer or someone who's doing it out of the back of a car kind of thing.
I saw a great lady in America who has a van and she just headshots in a van and travels around.
Yeah.
I thought, what a great idea. I don't know if it'd work in the UK, but part of me really likes that concept.
Yeah. I can think it really works. I think
except if it's raining, because she kind of has to stand outside her van to shoot.
It's like all things.
Maybe she's get a horse box. I think that's quite a nice idea, Yeah. Someone do that for me. Make me
like a caravan type idea.
Can someone just like give me a horse box so that I can set this up? I just feel like I need to do this. Brands reach out. So for checklist, what I'm thinking of is before you is actually, have you got time for this?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You need to be aware that it is.
You think you have time, but I don't think a lot of people do.
Yeah, I mean, but I think a lot of people think that it's one of these careers that you can go to for a good work-life balance.
Is it F?
And it's like, yeah, if your balance is always working.
So here's the thing, right? When I got my studio, I did everything wrong. As in, like, I didn't think about it. I was helping a friend out with Sticky Wicket.
Yeah.
We won't go into that because I'm not fair on them. And I took over. And when I walked into that studio, do you remember me calling you, Nils, it's yellow? The whole studio was yellow. And I couldn't know, Cornish cream. It was Cornish cream. And I cried. The floor wasn't laid properly. There was dirt everywhere. Even the curtains for the changing room were so low, they were hitting me on the head. Do you remember all that?
You had a changing room. We had to build our changing room.
All right, I was very privileged. I only took knowledge. So I had to do, and I remember, and this is a story I've told, right? And I'm going to tell you this story because I know you've heard it to death.
Yeah.
When I opened my studio, first week, the landlord saw the state of the room, went, you can have a month rent free because he knew I had to do lots of work to build it up. That meant plastering some things, painting something, the electrics needed sorting, a window, there was some damp problem, all got sorted. But the day I opened the studios, the day I opened the first door to start all this work, I was having a chandelier, because it's me, fitted in the changing room, a little one. And Steve was up on the scaffoldy thing doing it. And this man walked in, and sorry, I'm going to not use his name because I think that's not fair. He walked in and he said, "Hi, are you the photographer?" And I went, "Yeah, I am. Please meet. I'm Khandie." He went, "Right." And he walked around. I had my hand outstretched for a handshake, and he didn't. And I went, "Okay, not everyone shakes hands."
Yeah.
And he walked around, and it suddenly felt like I was in the OK Corral or something, and I was about to be shot down. And sure enough, he did. He turned around and went, "I'll give you a month before you F this up and 6 months before you close shop." Except he used choicier language. And I looked at him and went, "Get to F." And he looked, and the thing is, my mate who was hanging out poked it around, and he's got a very broad Scottish accent, so I'm not going to ruin it. And he went, "Okay, you wee B word," like this. And the guy went, oh, obviously not realising there was someone else there. And he's got, and what was really annoying, this guy is a photographer in our town where I live, and he's still there working. And I find that quite comforting. So obviously I wasn't enough threat for him to be really conscious, but also I was enough threat that he risked his reputation to come in.
Yeah, there is. I mean, it's surprising how territorial some photographers
I'm like,
can get.
we're not even in the same like not tax bracket, I shouldn't say that, in the same like pricing structure.
Yeah.
And like, I remember not long after that, another photographer came to see me for some advice. I gave her loads of advice. I helped her out. I loaned some kit to her. And then I happened to be behind her in a coffee shop, and I went to say hi, and she was slagging me off, saying that I've done nothing to help her, even though she's asked loads of help. And I went, I literally went through your business plan with you and corrected it and helped you out and loaned you my studio for 4 weeks. And I'm like, you cheeky chopsy cowbag. And that's when I learned, I am not creating photography for other photographers, and I need to not worry about other photographers. So when you have a studio, I don't have a massive studio. It's not glamorous.
No,
it's functional. And I think that's what's more important for me. Because it is an experience to hang out with me, but the experience is actually me and what I bring, not the aesthetics of my room. My room is very clean and minimal, and it's got quirky things in it. But it's not like, I'm not agonising over what sofa I'm buying that month. And I'm not got a boho vibe to my studio. My studio is very functional because it has to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's a tool at the end of the day.
Yeah, it is a tool. And I do regret having it some days, because there are times when I look at it and it hasn't been used for like a week and I'm like, well, that's a lot of money. But then I remember I'm not using it because I'm working somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I've also had this thing, and we're going to talk about, like, renting the studio out, which we both know I've had issues with.
Yeah, and we stopped doing it.
Yeah, we're going to come on to this because I feel like this is going to be some nice things.
Studio hires.
Studio hiring is never good fun. Before we finish, I feel like we're going to do some final words, but renting your studio out. So some people think they're going to get a studio and they're going to rent it out.
Which we did, to be fair, both of us did.
Yeah, I'll never do that again.
Yeah, no, they're not even going to try that one again.
Not only does nobody treat your kit with care because they couldn't give an F, but also, do you remember that guy who took all my stuff down and pretended it was his studio?
Oh, the guy we did all their lighting for, and the next day they had a website saying that they were a professional photographer after.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
I had a guy who paid to use a paper roll. It's the white and black and white one, which I put up, only for me to find out a week later from his studio shots that he'd put on Instagram that he'd used the pink roll and cut through it, and it was a brand new roll. And I knew it was mine because I opened my pink roll, and sure enough, there's a big hole in it. Yeah. So I messaged him, and he couldn't understand why I was annoyed.
Yeah. Paper rolls just like ridiculous. Like,
yeah, and they don't realize how expensive they are.
That's right. Yeah,
it's something that you obviously, it's one of those consumables that you know, but it's just annoying when someone cuts a dirty, great big hole 3 meters into it. And you're like, what? Why?
We had done a very similar kind of thing, so yeah.
Yeah, but for me, I think when it comes to choosing your studio, don't look at premises just yet. Financially, can you cover it if you don't get any business in? Yeah. And one of the things I friggin' hate, and I've said this loads of times, and I've got in a future episode, we've got Luna coming on to talk about Luna, Amanda, however you want to call her, about marketing, is how many photographers get a studio and then have no idea how to market it.
Yeah, I mean, that was obviously our biggest problem, is that me and my dad were particularly good at marketing to start with, kind of thing.
And this is why I tell everybody, stop learning how to pose and learn how to bloody run a business first before you start setting yourself up as a business.
Yeah, that's the bit that's the hardest bit, and it's the bit that's least fun as well.
Yeah, it is the least, unless it's, you hang out with me and I teach you how to do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty good at it, I think. I think I've got it down.
Yeah.
Loud and obnoxious is definitely my style.
Yeah.
Blunt. And so people who run the studios, they often just go, I can't get any business in, why not? And I'm like, well, what are you doing? Yeah. And they're on Instagram and I'm like, okay, cool, but what are you doing?
Yeah.
On there. Yeah, but I'm like, I'm commenting, yeah, but are you showing people what it's like? Are you doing humorous side? Are you showing your personality? Because people are intimidated to go get their photographs taken. Yeah. And if you don't understand how to market your studio as a business premises, what hope have you got marketing your actual photography?
Yeah. I mean, because it is a beast. You do need to keep feeding it.
And it doesn't have to cost you money to market it. No. It's time, which is, okay, in business is money. But you can do free content by just doing a, hey, get to know me video.
Yeah.
Like this, which not getting to know me really, because I'm just sat with Nils.
That's right.
Okay. And last bit of advice for anybody who is having a dramatic career change, because to be honest, this is quite a big step for you.
Yeah.
We're going to have to get you back in like 6 months to see how you're feeling.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where I'll be in 6 months. We'll see how it goes.
All right, careful, because I don't want to be rude, but don't be morbid. Given what's just happened to me recently, I don't want anyone else popping their clogs. Sorry, I should trigger warn that. I've got very dark humour.
Yeah.
Go on. What are you going to do? You're just going to spend some time just researching and experimenting again. Yeah,
I think I kind of
photography, not anything else.
Well, some other stuff too, maybe. But
it's been single a while, ladies.
I think it's just a case of like take a deep breath, kind of decide what I do want to do, kind of thing. So,
do you think you've fallen out of love with photography a little bit?
Well, I mean, obviously I've been doing it for a while now, and like.
Are you at burnout point, do you think?
I probably was burnout point a couple of years ago, to be honest.
I reckon I saw you go through burnout, and I did mention this to you. And I'm the worst friend that you've ever had, because I will literally poke you and go, oi, why don't you shoot this? Why are you not doing this? And I remember you getting really frustrated with me at one point and walking out the room. Yeah. But that's because I know you've got such potential and I see it. I mean, your pictures you did, what's the lady is it Dolly who's gone to Australia?
Yeah.
When you did those all those years ago, I knew you had something, and yet you then went back to shooting babies. Nothing wrong with that, but you had such potential. But I think because you were trapped in this studio cycle, you stopped developing that. And I hope, for me, as your friend and someone who's been in your life a very long time, I'm like, the shit you can't flush. Can I get it on a podcast? It's mine again. Yeah. I hope you push that more, because I can see you doing model shoots, like, you know, and all these cool, crazy shoots, but that are very fashion forward and a lot of like, I don't want to downplay it, but like content creator kind of lifestyle shoots that is so your vibe. And you've only, every now and then I see it peek out of your portfolio and then it goes retreating back because you've done another baby shoot. Because you've got to feed the beast. And now the beast is gone.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I hope if you listen to this is Nils. Where can they find you? Not in the studio.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's kind of different because all the. I mean, it might come back as like the URL, but yeah, I mean, you can find me under my name, which.
You should have nilsbratby.com.
I'm not. Yeah, I think there's points to our website at the minute. So.
Well, you know what you're going to do, aren't you?
Yeah.
Sort your website out.
Yeah.
And in 6 months' time, we're going to have you back.
Yeah.
If this podcast, this will be on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
All the links will be below. Follow Nils' journey. I think that would be a cool thing for us to do a check-in on you, see how you're getting on.
Yeah.
Although I feel like I might publicly shame you, which I don't really have. That's not my
Yeah, I
intent.
was going to say, I don't really know where I'm going yet. So.
No, we'll do something. And I'll see you all on the next Loud Lens. This has been me, Khandie, Reese, and Nils.
Woo.